mid-1800s, actually, the Prussians were having quite a lot of military success. They started to fight off other empires, the first of which was the Danes in 1864. I don't know how good your Danish history is, but you guys aren't famous for winning wars. Yeah. So it wasn't that difficult, all right? But they did have quite a strong ally in 1864. The Prussians were allied with the Austrians. 2 years later, 1866, that partnership turned a bit sour and Prussia defeated Austria as well. 5 years after this, 1871, Prussia then goes on to defeat France. So major victory. People here in Berlin, the capital of Prussia, are pretty excited. They start to party. Other German-speaking states around here, though, places like Bavaria and Saxony, are a bit worried. They fought alongside Prussia against France, and they know what happens to Prussia's allies. So, before this turns into a Central European German mess of a war, one guy solves this whole problem. His name is, of course, Otto von Bismarck. Yes. Yeah. I've heard of Bismarck. Yes, good. We've heard of him. It's good. He had a crazy moustache, right? Yeah? That's very important if you want to be a leader in Germany. Yeah? Having a weird moustache. Come on, you've seen Angela Merkel. She's rocking. Anyway, Bismarck, he says to these people all across these German-speaking countries, hey, we all speak German. It's a good start. We've got an unhealthy obsession for beer, and we're madly in love with sausages. These sound to me like the building blocks for an empire, so we should start one. King of Prussia, you can be the emperor or the Kaiser. King of Prussia says yes. Overnight, Berlin goes from being the capital of a kingdom to being the capital of an empire. Very quickly, it gets a huge growth in population, huge growth in industry, and quite a lot of money. The Kaisers weren't really around for very long, though. There were only ever 3. The third and final Kaiser was Wilhelm II, which means they didn't have a lot of time to choose other names, really, does it? I mean, the Prussian kings, they were either called Friedrich or Wilhelm, or, when they're feeling fruity, sometimes they name their kids Friedrich Wilhelm. Yeah. Wilhelm II then, in 1914, he takes Germany into the Second World War. And First World War, I do know my stuff, we're all right. 1914 takes Germany into the First World War. And that started for all sorts of weird reasons. Because Franz Ferdinand, an Austrian guy, got assassinated, and then Austria said, this sounds like a good way to expand our borders. Germany said, we want to expand our borders too. And then Germany started picking on some really bad people. Britain, France, and Russia, all at the same time. That's not really going to work out very well for them. They didn't really do a very good job. And then by 1916, America joined in as well. 2 years later, the First World War was over. It started for very bizarre reasons. It was a very, very strange war. By the end of it, Germany, though, was definitely announced as the loser because they were forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, which was a very long and boring document. But it had some really important parts. Firstly, it said that the Kaiser had to abdicate and flee to Holland, and that Germany was to become a democracy. That was founded in 1919. That was the Weimar Republic, which was a very idealistic democracy and not a very practical one. They had, in 14 years, 23 different governments, which is bad for most of us, but we don't have any Italians here, do we? No, because that's a record for them. They'd be like, way to go. It's difficult, okay? So the Weimar Republic, not really very successful. This is because actually they were under a lot of economic stress. The government changing quite a lot, and the Treaty of Versailles also stated that Germany had to finance the entire First World War. This was a massive sum. Germany did not pay this off until October the 3rd of last year, which means that our government was accepting money for Germany from the First World War until last year. That's kind of weird, isn't it? We're like, yeah, we'll have your money. What's it for? This was over 90 years ago, we've forgotten. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so Germany was in a lot of economic turmoil. 1919, $1 US dollar will get you 4 German marks. 4 years later, that same dollar will get you 4.2 trillion marks. So people here were starving on the streets. Money had become worthless. You could earn 100 Deutschmarks today, and it would be worth nothing tomorrow. People had to carry wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy bread. They were plastering their walls with cash. It was not working out. So 1923, the candle is passed from my country to America. Yes, that is the title of World Police. Yay. No smiles today. Come on. It's all right. America, they did an all right job. We were pretty crap as the World Police as far as it goes, to be quite fair. And the Americans started off on the right foot. In 1923, they came to Germany, they said, this looks like a bit of a mess. They injected a lot of loans into the country. led to a period in Berlin's history that we call the Golden 20s. In the Golden 20s, people have a lot of political and social freedoms. They have a lot of cocaine, a lot of partying. Yeah, they have a brilliant time. The Golden 20s comes to an end in 1929 because of the Wall Street crash. All the money in Germany dries up. By 1933, the Germans have not only lost all their money, they've lost their faith in democracy as well. They start to look to political extremes. The communists on the left, the National Socialists, the Nazis on the right. On the 30th of January 1933, Adolf Hitler was democratically elected as the Chancellor of Germany, marched right through the Brandenburg Gate. This was the beginning of 12 years that we can look back on as perhaps some of the worst years, definitely some of the worst years in human history. It raises a lot of different questions about human nature, and it's 12 years that I can't do justice about right now. So, I'm going to be spending much more time later on in the tour talking about Nazi Germany. To cut a long story short, Hitler takes Germany into the Second World War, Germany loses. This time the Allied powers decide to treat Germany differently. They split the country into 4 parts. The Soviets take the east, and the Americans, the British and the French take the west. We are now in the former Soviet occupation zone. Berlin was entirely in the east. So the Western Allies said we would like half of that too, and that's what happened. Berlin very famously became a 4-sector city. We are in the Soviet sector, we are going to be in the Soviet sector for pretty much the entire tour. The British sector though, that started just the other side of the Brandenburg Gate through here. French sector was to the north, American sector to the south. These 4 guys all stay friends for 3 years until, sorry about that, they stay friends for 3 years until 1948 when we discover that Joseph Stalin does not like to share. Who'd have guessed? He cuts off the roads, the phone lines, the power lines, the rivers, all the access to West Berlin. He wants to make the West Berliners rely on East Berlin. The Western Allies don't like this. So, from June of 1948 to May of 1949, the Western Allies fly everything into West Berlin that the West Berliners need. This is food, clothes, they even fly in a power station in pieces. It's the most effective operation of its kind. In fact, between 1948 and 1949, at one point there was a plane landing in West Berlin every 62 seconds. It's called the Berlin Airlift, alright? Really awesome stuff. After the Berlin Airlift, the Western Allies declare the nation of the Federal Republic of Germany, or West Germany. And shortly following that, the Soviets declare the nation of the German Democratic Republic, or East Germany, which is a very strange name for a totalitarian communist state. But why the hell not? The Democratic People's Republic of Korea do the same thing. And that is the second longest name for any country. Does anybody know the country with the longest name? Any guesses? No? You're looking at it. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Yeah! Score 1 for controversy. So, 1949 then, we've got 2 Germanys, 1952, we've got 2 Europes, because Stalin places what Winston Churchill calls the Iron Curtain down over Europe. A line from north to south that seals the border between East and West. People start wanting to leave the communist countries, and they can't. In fact, the only people that can are the East Germans. West Berlin, just over this road, is a free city with open borders. So East Berliners, East Germans, start to leave. In fact, between 1949 and 1961, 2.6 million East Germans flee the country. People that are leaving, they're the young, educated and wealthy, they're the people that East Germany wants to stay. So, to stop them leaving, on August the 13th, 1961, Walter Ulbricht, leader of East Germany, orders 40,000 East German soldiers to roll barbed wire 160 kilometers around West Berlin. It's 100 miles. Creating overnight the Berlin Wall, a wall that separates family and friends, separates people from their work. It divides not just 2 sides of this city, 2 sides of Germany, it divides the world. The Berlin Wall becomes the symbol of the Cold War. Capitalism on one side, communism on the other. And that wall stays there for 28 years until David Hasselhoff brings it down by singing Looking for Freedom. It's true. You alright? That should be the national anthem. Sure. Anyway, that didn't happen. The wall came down because of a guy called Günter Schabowski, an East German politician with a very big mouth. I'm going to be talking about him, master of suspense, way at the end of the tour. So, less than a year after this, October the 3rd, 1990, Germany reunifies. Since then, they've got rid of the double denim, they've got rid of the mullets, they've grown up. If you think maybe of Germany as a bit of a teenager, they've got a real job now. They're doing all right, okay? The last 20 years, they've become perhaps the most important country in Europe, especially in the EU. The last 100 years has shown us the absolute worst of humanity. The last 20 years has, in many ways, been a really inspiring story, stitching these two incredibly competitive ideologies back together. And that's the Germany and Berlin that I really want to focus on today. And to do that, I'm going to have to go through all the terrible history as well. So, hope you guys are with me. We're going to be going on to the next stop now. Go through here, take a left. We are going to the Memorial for the Murdered Jews of Europe. We are, of course, going to be talking about the history of the Holocaust, okay? Before we do, are there any questions? No. Those of you that are worried, that was the longest stop on the tour. It's all quick and easy from here. So, let's do it.
Oh, sorry, can I just ask?
Yes.